But our speaker today is setting us off, Daiko Osho-san, Lord High Abbot of Ichibata Temple, Yakusi, and he's a very good friend of ours, going back many decades actually. And I'm so pleased that you're here with us again this year. He leads an incredibly busy life with his temple, looking after a huge number of people, disciples, visitors, goodness. He's plus the Dharma, everything together in one. That's really the most perfect person to talk to us about practice. Furthermore, he was ordained when he was quite young. He was also a disciple of so-called Morinaga Roshi, who some of the older members here may remember. Some of you here, I guess. I can see a few nods there. And he's actually written Soko's written a book on the Mumon Kan, the commentary of the Mumon Kan, which we made at the summer school. So when the bookshops open, get that book. It's really helpful. If you're at all interested in Zen, if you're not, doesn't matter. It all feeds into the same thing. There's only one Buddhism, really. You strip away things, just one Dharma. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us.
Good afternoon, everyone. And the title of my first talk is The Greatest Encounter in Life. The greatest encounter in my life, I can say yes. The so-called Roshi, he's my Buddhist teacher. I was born in a temple, and my father was the head priest of the temple. The temple is called Ichibata Yakusi, or Ichibata-ji. Ichibata Yakusi is a Zen Buddhist temple, belong to the Rinzai tradition, Myoshinji sect. The temple is also known as the medicine Buddha for eye ailments. Since the beginning of its history of 1,100 years. Now, I am in charge of the head priest. When I was 13, it was about 50 years ago, I became a disciple of so-called Roshi. At that time, my father was seeking a good Buddhist teacher for me, who is young, strict, but not famous, because my father believed that a good teacher should be always with his disciple at his temple. So-called Roshi was exactly the ideal teacher. I remember the first time we visited Master Soko's temple in Kyoto. My parents took me to the Daishuin, it's the temple name, so-called Roshi lived. When we called out our greeting at the entrance with "Hello," a loud "Yes" came from the back of the temple, and a teenage monk appeared. He bowed deeply with his head touching the floor and said, "Welcome." We also bowed in return. This is part of the Japanese culture, a formal way of greeting. When we raised up our head, the young monk was still bowing. Much longer than we expected. That was a very respectful bow. My parents were impressed by his bowing.
From that dormitory,
and thought how thoroughly the young monks at this temple were trained. That monk's bow decided my fate. Even though I didn't want to at the age of 13, however, I became his disciple, so-called Roshi's disciple. The first thing I learned as a daily life practice was how to bow. I was taught to bow deeply and respectfully to everyone, placing my hands and head on the floor and to hold the bow for the length of one slow breath. This means that you shouldn't change the length of respectfulness of your bow depending on the person's appearance, age, or social status. It was a lesson in treating all people equally. There is a saying in the temple world, lowering your head makes your heart dignified like a lily flower. The next thing I learned as a daily life practice was cleaning. Cleaning is the foundation of all training. My daily routine would start by shouting and waking Sokoroshi at 4:30 a.m. every morning. I would sit on the tatami mat just outside his room, bow my head low to the mat, and call out in a loud voice, "Good morning, it's time to wake up." Sokoroshi would respond with a loud, "Yes." After a short while, I could sense him getting out of his bed and opening the sliding door on the opposite side of the room to go to the toilet. Then I would quickly enter the room, fold up the bedding and store it in the closet. Then I would fetch a bucket, fill it with water, grab a cloth, return to the room to start cleaning. While Sokoroshi led the morning chanting in the main hall, the other disciples would join him in prayer. The service usually took about 45 minutes during this time. I was responsible for cleaning Sokoroshi's room. It was a race against time as I listened to the prayers, constantly aware of how much time was left. By the time the service was over, Sokoroshi returned to his room. I had to finish with all the cleaning and be completely out of the room. I learned by working together with an 18-year-old senior monk until I could do it on my own. He carefully taught me everything on the spot. Looking back now, we were both young and just like a sponge soaking up water. Youngsters were able to learn the spirit of cleaning and practical tips. Sokoroshi had a bit of mischievous side. One morning after breakfast during our tea time meeting, he suddenly said to me, "Go to my room and check the alcove." I quickly grabbed the cloth and rushed to his room. I checked closely to see if there was any dust left, if I had forgotten to wipe off any water drops, if there were any spider webs, if I had scratched a wall, or if the incense burner or flower vase was facing the wrong way. I got close to the alcove and inspected everything carefully, but nothing seems out of place. Just to be sure, I even wiped the clean spot again. When I came back feeling completely lost, Sokoroshi said, "Didn't you notice the beautiful flowers I arranged?" it wasn't about cleaning. The real question was whether I noticed the flower in the alcove. My teacher wanted to see if the beautiful flowers caught the attention of my pure middle school heart. He didn't say, "Look at the flowers," but wait for me to notice on my own. Looking back, it was a bit of a tricky lesson, but truly a kind one. Later, I found out that this was the same kind of tricky lesson Roshi had experienced from his own teacher during his training. He had a way of seeing things with a long-term perspective, especially when it came to teaching his disciples. It was truly a way of guiding and nurturing us. Now, I have a few students, disciples, and staff around me. I thought I would try to imitate Soko Roshi by taking a long-term view of things, even if just in a small way. Looking back, I remember that Soko Roshi's room was always very clean. When we cleaned his desk or shelves, we would move things, wipe the surface, and then put everything back in its place. Because his room was so clean, he could ask others to help with the cleaning. If his room had been messy, he wouldn't have been able to ask or order anyone else to clean it. I now realize that I needed to start by tidying up my own room first. Anyway, cleaning is one of the most important practices in daily life. And it's not just about cleaning your room, washing dishes, doing laundry, gardening, and so on. In our daily life, the practice never ends. It's truly a kind of training. Even if you think you have finished, things will get dirty, messy, or broken again very quickly. The best way to clean something dirty or organize a messy space that you can do it with joy. It's essential to do whatever you are doing wholeheartedly and with care and attention. What should I eat today? Or where should I go today? Or who should I meet today? It's easy to put your heart into things you like and find fun. There are also many important things that might not be fun. It's just like life. It's important to realize that what you have in your hands right now, what's happening in front of you, is the most important thing in your life that you need to focus on. The act of cleaning often reminds us of the story of Chula Pantaka in Buddhism. He is one of the Buddha's disciples and well known as one of the 16 arhats, a group of legendary arhats. They are particularly popular in Zen Buddhism, both in China and in Japan. They are treated as examples of behavior. There are many different stories about Buddha's disciples. I will share a well-known version of the story as it is told in Japan. There were two brothers, Mahapantaka and Chula Pantaka, born into a Brahmin family. The elder brother, Mahapantaka, was very intelligent. He studied many different fields of knowledge, read all kinds of books, and was said to be as wise as the ocean is deep. One day, Mahapantoka encountered a crowd of people in the town. They were waiting for the arrival of the Buddha's two chief disciples. Later that night, Mahapantoka met a monk meditating under the tree. This monk was Shariputra. Mahapantoka asked Shariputra to teach him. Shariputra taught him about the Four Noble Truths and the 12 links of dependent origination. These are important teachings in Buddhism. Mahapantoka was so moved that he became a disciple of the Buddha. After becoming a monk, he spent his days reciting Buddhist scripture and his night meditating. He did his practice very hard and eventually reached enlightenment. However, his younger brother, Chulapantaka, was complete opposite. He was extremely slow to learn. He'd forget everything. He tried to study and sometimes even forgot his own name. So he had to wear a name tag around his neck. Their father, feeling deep pity for Chulapantaka, asked Mahapantoka on his deathbed to take care of his slow-witted younger brother. Because of this, Mahapantaka looked after his brother, but after Mahapantaka became a monk, Chulapantaka was left alone at home. Chulapantaka lived his life of poverty and misery. Seeing this, Mahapantaka asked the Buddha to allow his slow-witted brother to become a monk as well. The Buddha agreed, and Mahapantaka taught his brothers a simple verse to recite every day. Don't let your action, words, or thought do any harm. Cherish all living beings. Observe the emptiness of the world. Free yourself from the suffering of greed, anger, and ignorance. But even after 3 months, Chulapantaka couldn't memorize even one verse. Meanwhile, a nearby shepherd who had heard the verse by chance memorized it easily. Chulapantaka, surprised, began visiting the shepherd every day to learn the verse from him, but still couldn't remember it. Eventually, Mahapantaka was disappointed and told him, "Someone as slow-witted as you has no right to study Buddha's teachings." Then he banished Chulapantaka from the gate of the monastery. Abandoned by his brother, Chulapantaka could only cry. The Buddha stood beside him. He gently patted Chulapantaka's shoulder and said, "One who knows their own foolishness is actually wise. The truly foolish person is the one who thinks they are wise when they are not." Then the Buddha gave Chulapantaka a broom and told him to sweep the monastery's garden every day. While reciting just 2 simple lines, sweep sweep away the dust, remove the dirt. Sweep away the dust, remove the dirt. From that day on, Chulapantaka faithfully swept the garden every day. Chulapantaka spent all his time reciting them. After many years later, Chulapantaka finally realized that the dust and dirt he needed to remove the impurities in his own heart. With this understanding, he diligently followed the path and finally attained true wisdom and enlightenment. When his brother Mahapantaka heard this, he rushed over in joy and said, "Brother, you have finally attained enlightenment." Chulapantaka just smiled gently and remained silent. Chulapantaka's enlightenment quickly became known throughout the Buddhist community. Some people outside the Buddhist Some people outside the Buddhist faith criticize Buddhism, saying that it must be shallow if someone as foolish as Chulapantaka could attain enlightenment. And even within the Buddhist community, there were those who doubt that validity of his enlightenment. So the Buddha asked Chulapantaka to give a teaching at the nursery. Even though he was not a smooth speaker, Chulapantaka clearly explained the main points of the Buddhist teaching. Everyone who was there was deeply moved and felt like their heart had been cleansed. Because of this, many people wanted to learn from Chulapantaka. Buddha then said, to attain enlightenment, you don't need to learn many things. Even a single verse, if deeply understood, can lead you to the path. I think this is a story worth hearing again and again. I think the key of this story is to seeking the path with our sincere and dedicated effort. It's essential to do whatever you are doing wholeheartedly and with care and attention. The verse of the seven Buddha is a special Buddhist verse that is said to summarize the teaching of seven Buddhas. It's considered one of the oldest teachings in Buddhism and is found in Dhammapada too. In Japan, of course, everybody who are interested in Buddhism learn the first this verse. We also chant in the morning, non-doing of any harm, the performance of what's skillful, the cleansing of one's own mind. This is the Buddha's teaching. In Japan, the verse of the seven Buddhas are well known across different Buddhist schools. They became even more famous in Zen Buddhism, especially when they start being introduced along with this particular story from China. The story of Bai Jui and Zen master Daolin. This is a story about Bai Jui, a famous poet in China in the 18th century when he was bureaucrat. He was sent to work in a new place. He decided to visit Zen master named Master Daolin. Master Daolin was known for the meditation on the top of a pine tree. Here's how their conversation went. Baijui, meditating up there, it's dangerous. Master Daolin, what's really dangerous is being down there. Baijui, how can being on the ground be more dangerous than being up in the tree? Master Daolin, those who don't know Buddha's teachings and have an unsettled heart are in danger, even on the ground. Baiju, what exactly are the Buddha's teachings? Then Master Daolin said, the non-doing of any harm, the performance of what skillful, the cleansing of one's own mind. This is the Buddha teaching. Baiju, even a 3-year-old child knows that. Master Daolin, that may be true, but even a wise person who has lived 80 years will find it very hard to actually do it. Baiju was so moved by this that he couldn't say anything in return. What we can learn from this story are as follows. Knowing something and actually doing it are completely different things. I have read many books. I understand them well. I know a lot, and I can explain these things to you. But do I always practice what I teach? How about my daily life? Am I really living according to what I explain? If what I know and what I do are completely different, then it's not enough. In Buddhism, the teachings are truly learned only when knowing and doing becoming one. This story shows how difficult that can be. I also find the following story very persuasive and interesting. What most important is doing it now. Another story. In the teaching of Buddhas, there is a story about 4 types of good horses. The first type of the good horse understands the rider's intention just by seeing the shadow of the whip, then follows the correct path. The second type of the good horse doesn't move when it sees the shadow of the whip, but as soon as the whip slightly touches its hair or tail, it immediately understands the rider's intentions and follows the correct path. The third type of the good horse doesn't move when it sees the shadow of the whip. It doesn't even move when the whip touches its skin. But when it gets hit by the whip, it understands the rider's intention and then follows the correct path. The fourth type of the good horse doesn't move when it sees the shadow, doesn't move when the whip touches its skin, doesn't move even when it gets hit. But after being hit many times, it finally understands the rider's intention and starts to follow the correct path. The Buddha's teaching is not just the story of the horses, but it's the story of ourselves. imagine someone enjoying their life who hears all living things will grow old, get sick, and eventually die. If this person becomes afraid and reflects on their life, deciding to live seriously, and they're like the first type of the person, good person. If someone doesn't realize this by hearing it, but then sees people growing old, getting sick, and dying, and only then becomes afraid and reflects on this life, they are like the second person. If someone doesn't realize it by hearing or seeing it, but only understands when a close family member grows old, gets sick, or dies, and then becomes afraid and reflects on their life to live seriously, they are like the third person. The fourth person doesn't notice even then, but when they themselves experienced the pain of growing old, getting sick, or dying, they finally become afraid and realize the truth. Of course, we all know that everyone gets older. When we are young, we call it growing up, but we started calling it aging at some point of our life. When we are young, we don't really believe that we will grow old, get sick, and eventually die. We think that happens to our parents, for example, not to us. But when we lose our parents, we realize something important. We understand that our parents were unique and irreplaceable to us. If they hadn't lived, we wouldn't have been born. In the same way, if our grandparents hadn't met, neither our parents nor we would be here. This is true for all our ancestors, going back many generations. Then we start to realize that our own times will come. Many people begin to feel that their life has limits, and they are constantly changing. We understand this truth in our head. But now we truly feel it in our hearts. For example, how old are you? Oh, you are 40. The average lifespan for men is 80, and for women it's 90, for example. So you may have 40 or 50 years left to live. There's still many things you want to do. But let's imagine something different. But if you are healthy enough, but you only have 1 year left to live, you have a lot to work and many things. You might need to start organizing and lightening your load. You could delegate tasks to others early on. You could give away or throw away things you don't need. You would think carefully about what work is really important to you. You think about what things are truly necessary in your life. I sometimes try to think myself this way. Not sometimes, often things. Today will never come again. The person you are meeting right now is someone you may never seen again. So let's do my best. I sometimes think myself, I only have 1 year left. This might be the last time I see you. This might be the last meal we share. I have been so grateful for everything you have done for me. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And this is a story of young couple, very close friends, who had been married for 3 years. They were both working and shared the housework. The husband didn't often thank his wife for doing cooking, cleaning, washing, folding laundry, and so on around the house. He felt he was doing his share well, but his wife didn't see it that way. One day, the wife was driving. She was listening to a radio program. Someone was asking questions about health. The topic was tongue cancer. The questioner talked about finding a lump. There was white hard lump inside his mouth. The doctor on the radio said it might be the tongue cancer and recommended going to the hospital right away. The doctor also explained how the size of the lump could show how serious it was. The wife listened carefully. Later that evening, the wife was brushing her teeth. She remembered the radio program and she checked underside of her tongue in a mirror. To her surprise, she saw the same white hard lump that looked just like as what she had imagined from the radio. The wife quickly searched online for more information. The more she read, the more she became convinced it could be. She told her husband right away, and he was shocked too. He also started researching online and in medical books. They are both very worried. They reached out to an uncle who knew a doctor at the university hospital. This doctor recommended a specialist, and they made an appointment for biopsy. The test was scheduled for 2 weeks later, and those 2 weeks felt very long. To their surprise, during that time, husband's attitude completely changed. He became kinder in how he spoke to his wife and started thanking her more often. Before meals and after meals, he said thank to her, even though he hadn't done that before much. When he picked up clean clothes, he said thank to her again. He hadn't done that before much. He started to help with housework more, realizing that it might be the last time they could do these things together. Finally, the result of the biopsy coming up. It was not cancer. They were so relieved and so happy. A month later, worry about tongue cancer was just a memory. Their daily life returned to normal, and husband's gentle words and also returned to normal. But the experience left them with a reminder that their time together is precious. Their bond grew stronger and they became closer as a couple. In reality, nothing has changed in their daily life. However, when they thought that death might be near, the world looked completely different. As a result, their daily life changed a lot. It went from being just the same routine every day to something special, where each day became a precious and unique moment. Living in the present moment is a teaching often emphasized in Zen. It's true that the only time we are really alive is right now. However, our mind often dwells on the past or worry about the future. Being fully focused on the present without distractions is easy to say, but very hard to do. A saying that many Japanese people like, a proverb or a motto, is Ichigo Ichie. Here's Ichigo Ichie, the Soko Roshi's handwriting. This picture is the Daishuin, the Soko Roshi's temple. Ichigo Ichie means once in a lifetime encounter. When we say that, we often think of things like winning a gold medal at the Olympics, or visiting the place we most want to go in the world, or meeting our current partner. Encounter with Soko Roshi. We usually think of unusual events, not everyday life. Now, let me ask you a question. What has been your once-in-a-lifetime encounter? Think about the best encounter you've had in your life so far. This is a story from 40 years ago. There was a famous priest named Ryoke Onishi. He's not Zen tradition, but very famous in Japan. Lived to be 108 years old. He became a monk when he was very young and achieved great success. He served as the head priest of the famous temples in Japan and held important positions in the Buddhist community beyond just his own sect. He was interviewed at 108, just before passed away. The interviewer asked, "What was your most memorable moment in your life?" Ryoke Osho replied, "Right now." The interviewer was so amazed at his answer and felt ashamed of her question. The interviewer realized she had asked a question assuming that the person in front of her was just an old man who had long passed the prime of his life and was now simply waiting for the end. However, the priest answer showed that he was living fully in the present moment, as if it was the peak of his life. Answer. This elderly man gave was that right now, in the middle of his old age, this is the greatest encounter in life. What we call Ichigo Ichie, once in a lifetime meeting. This is a once in a lifetime meeting. It's a wonderful way to live. No matter how old you are, you always live in the brightest moment of your life right now. Can we live like this? Can we live like him too? Today will never come again. The me of today is not the same as the me of yesterday. And the me of tomorrow will not be the same as the me of today. Originally, this phrase, Ichigo Ichie, comes from the tea ceremony. Tea ceremony is a way of drinking a simple cup of matcha, green tea, that involves a lot of care and time. It's the traditional Japanese culture that has been passed down for 500 years. In the tea ceremony, the host who serves tea and the guest who drink share the same moment and space, regardless of their status or positions. Even though people might drink tea many times, each time they treated it as if it's the last chance to meet. This is the spirit of tea, and this is what Ichigo Ichie, once in a lifetime meeting, means. When you continue to practice sitting meditation, zazen, you will experience the idea of Ichigo Ichie, once in a lifetime meeting. There are many wonderful things, points that happen when you keep practicing zazen. It's good to be guided by the Buddha's teaching to practice zazen. You have experienced this in summer school and at the Buddhist society. You can feel nature while you are sitting. I can say you feel the seasons. I always feel the nature and seasons while I'm sitting. And you might feel both endless time and present moment. Spring comes, summer comes, and then autumn. You can feel the wind blowing past you. You might also feel the space. It's the feeling of being alive in the vast natural world. It's the feeling that your life is part of the universe. We usually think of ourselves as the center, somehow center of the world, and believe that we don't change, even though we can feel the world around us are changing. But we might not realize that we are also part of these changes, like being part of the wind or the seasons. Remember the two simple lines the Buddha told Chulapantaka to recite. Sweep away the dust, remove the dirt. Sweep away the dust, remove the dirt. It's really important to have this kind of sincere dedication. We are living fully in the present moment. The present is the peak of our life. The right now is the once in a lifetime encounter. Thank you very much.